Good morning, class. So today we are going to start with Chapter 5. Chapter 5 is where it starts getting really exciting because now you have to assess the opportunity that you have or your idea for your venture. In this chapter, we also talk about international opportunities. It is possible that you have a domestic opportunity, however, you will have to do something for your business in the international arena. For example, if you are in the apparel business, perhaps you want to investigate the possibility of having your apparel made somewhere else. So nowadays, it is more common that the lines between domestic and international business are blurred. And even though there is more pressure also to go international, it also has become easier. For example, if you sell your products on Amazon, it is really easy to go international because all you need to do is click a button to say that you also want to sell in Europe or in other markets where Amazon functions. Now let's talk about the opportunity assessment plan. Before you start writing your business plan, this is something that you would want to do. And that is, you have an idea and now you have to figure out, is it viable? Is it going to work? Is it going to make money? Because the last thing that you would want, of course, is to spend money, open a business, only to realize that it's not going to bring you the money that you had expected. So it's one thing to talk about an opportunity, but once you start putting pen to paper, that's when reality actually materializes. And then you're able to see more clearly, because sometimes entrepreneurs, because we are very optimistic, we think this is a wonderful opportunity and it's going to work, and that's why this step is key. It is not a business plan. It's shorter than a business plan, and you are focusing on the opportunity, not the entire venture. And at this point, you don't need any pro forma financial statements. And based on what you find, based on what you put on this document, you will be able to make a decision as to whether you want to enter the market or not. According to the book, this has 4 sections. In the first 2 sections, those would be the major parts. You would have a description of the product, specific parts of the product, who are your competition, and the size, trends, characteristics of the market, growth rate of the market, all good information. For the minor sections, you have on the 3rd section, how does the idea excite you? And what business skills do you have? What about your team? What skills do they have? Based on the assignment from last week, you already started working on this. Now, the 4th section is what comes next. What will be your next steps? Okay, so the book presents you these 4 parts of the opportunity assessment plan. The one that I'm going to share with you is a little bit more complete, and it may be a little longer, but I think it is better to be informed, because once you're informed, you are going to make better decisions. Before we go into that, we said that you will need information about the industry. And where do you get that information? Well, the book provides us with information sources, such as the ones that you have in front of you. These are all in the book. In this next slide, you have databases that you can use. These are also listed on the book. And more information besides Google. All right, so you have that available. Depending on your industry, you may want to use one and not the other. So it'll be a matter of you exploring and figuring out which database works for your industry. We cannot forget about government data like census reports and the Export-Import Authority databases that you have listed. Lastly, you'll need to try searching different key terms Don't forget to go to trade associations. So, for example, if you're interested in real estate, don't forget to go to the Sabre website because they do industry analysis, and you will be able to get the industry analysis that they did, that they completed, and benefit from that information. Also, trade journals are a good source of information. Now, here's the opportunity assessment that I will share with you. It has 10 parts. This is what I will ask you to do for your idea. And it has basically the same information as the 4 parts that the book suggested, but it is organized differently. And I think, at least in my head, this makes more sense. So first, you'll have your executive summary. As always, you can do that at the end because you'll want to do the executive summary after you've completed your analysis. After the executive summary come the product, market analysis, competitive landscape, other factors, talk about your team, do your financial projections and your risk assessment. This is the heart of the analysis. And then your conclusion, your decision, and your next steps. In this part, you will want to describe your product. What are you offering? And put enough detail that somebody who's not in your head can have a good idea of what you're intending to do. So go into specifics and talk about what market need are you filling. As an example, let's say that I want to open a music school. If I just say I want to open a music school, that is not enough information because a music school of what type? What am I teaching? Am I teaching singing lessons? All instruments? Just one? Where am I teaching? Is it a brick and mortar school? Is it an online school? Is it an app? Am I going to have online lessons available? And why do I think that this is a need, right? So I want to focus on stringed instruments because I think that San Antonio has many schools that focus on piano and voice lessons, but they need more string instruments. But I think San Antonio may benefit from having more string instruments because San Antonio is a heavily Hispanic market and this is also part of our culture. So tell me what your thinking is as far as why you think this is a need that needs to be filled. Then you're going to go into your market analysis. For your market analysis, think about first the entire market. Then you're going to narrow down to who's your served market. Then who specifically your target market. So it starts reducing and narrowing down. And then who's your bullseye? So who are you going to target specifically? So based on that, you'll do your market analysis. So I would need to, in my example, assess the demand for music education. So how many people really want to study music? And are there any other schools in San Antonio? And what is my potential student enrollment? How many students do I have available in my served market, right? Or actually in my bullseye target market. How many students do I have available in that segment? And this is where I will be identifying the target audience for the music school. On the other hand, perhaps I don't want to focus on students. Perhaps I want to focus on adult learners. Now, why would I do one or the other? You'll have to think and analyze what the differences are between your market segments. In this particular example, I could say, well, teenage students, they are more fickle. So maybe they try something and they'll maybe leaving that hobby that they started, versus adult students. They are more consistent and they have more money. They do have less time. So you'll have to take into account who your customers are and make a decision based on their characteristics. Then you'll also go into your competitive landscape. For my example, I will look at who my competitors are. What are they charging? What are they focusing on? Who are their customers? How are they doing? How long have they been in business? Where are they in San Antonio? And I'll want to write about it on my opportunity assessment. Once I've done that, I'll want to say, what is my unique selling proposition? So what is different about my school? Perhaps the difference is that in my school, we only focus on string instruments. So we teach guitar, ukulele, and so on, right? Electric guitar, you name it. Perhaps it's my instructors. Perhaps I have instructors who have master's degrees. So I can say that sets me apart. These are individuals who have 10 years of experience and so on. So you'll want to say what's your unique selling proposition. You'll also want to look at regulatory and location factors. So in my case, if I want to open a school, are there any licenses that I need? Are there any laws regarding the industry? Also, what is my optimal location? So once I've done my competitive landscape, I may say there are several schools that are in the north central area of town, but there aren't enough in the northeast area of town, so that's where I will do my school. And also, if you are an online business, or if you'll be selling online, where will you be selling? If you're selling something that is a DIY, perhaps you'll go to Etsy, or perhaps you'll go to Amazon, or perhaps you'll do your own. You'll want to describe where your business is going to be located. You'll want to talk about your team. You'll want to describe yourself. So the president of the company will be so and so, and this person has experience in this and that. And perhaps that if that person doesn't have experience yet, then you would want to list any classes that you have taken that will give you those transferable skills. Perhaps you're opening a restaurant in San Antonio and you haven't run any restaurants before, but you have worked in restaurants for several years. Then you'll want to get into your projections. How much money do you need at the beginning? What are your expenses? And then how much money are you going to make? So let's go into more detail on this one. We will begin with the costs that you will need to begin your business. You'll want to have enough money for everything that you need, like all the materials and so on, but also you'll want to save or to have something in the bank enough for at least 6 months of business. That's at the very, very minimum, okay? To be conservative, you'd want more, of course. In my example, I listed the guitars, equipment, and accessories. I figured I have already some things that I can use: furniture, office supplies, payroll, and lease and deposit. As you can tell, payroll and lease and deposit, I'm calculating to have at least 6 months in the bank, and that brings me to $17,500 for my startup costs. Now, the line items on the startup costs are going to be different for each of you, because for some of you, perhaps you're not going to lease a building, right? So for some of you, you won't need guitars and so on, right? It just depends on your business. On the other side, I have operating expenses, and that is, what do I need to spend every month? My monthly lease, my utilities. Let's say that I'm only calculating internet because everything else is included in the lease. Payroll, I have 2 instructors who work 20 hours each, so that's 40 hours total, and I pay them $25 an hour. That brings their payroll to $4,000 a month. Office supplies, I don't need much, and then other. Total, almost $6,000. Now, I need to estimate my sales. How do I do this? There's 2 ways that you can do it. You can do a top-down approach or you can do a bottom-up approach. With either one of these approaches, you are going to be making assumptions. So these are basically projections based on some things that you know and some things that you are taking a very educated guess on. For the top-down approach, you will start really wide, so start on the industry and then start funneling down to your target market. And then from the bottom up, you will start on what you have in order to be able to determine what your capacity would be. For the top-down approach in my example, I said, well, my students are going to be, or my target segment is going to be students in middle school and high schools, and there are 3 middle schools and 3 high schools close to my location, so that brings my segment market to 6,000 students. I figured that 10% might be interested. That's 600 students that would be potentially interested. Maybe I can convert 60 of those students to enroll in my school. And again, these are all just projections, right? And then the bottom up, I would start with what I have. I would start with my capacity. I would say, okay, I have 2 instructors. They are part-time. They're available 20 hours each. So that means if my lessons are 1 hour per week, I can teach a total of 40 students. If each of them pays $240 a month, that brings my revenue to $9,600. But I can't forget my expenses, so that brings my net to $3,650. That would be my projected net revenue. But I can't forget taxes, right? So I'm just going to make an assumption that I'll be saving 25% of my net for taxes, okay? Again, these are rough estimates. This is not an actual business plan. You don't have statements and so on. So just the rough numbers to see if your business idea makes sense or not. And this also helps you think through some of your business model, because perhaps I started with, I'll just charge them $180. But if I did that, perhaps it wouldn't be viable, right? So this helps you tweak some things even before you start. Then you go into your risk assessment, and that is, okay, let's think about where I could trip. Well, I could trip if perhaps my competition is very strong. If that's the case, because you'll always have competition, how do I manage that risk? Perhaps I offer something that they don't, right? Perhaps I offer to do a recital, a public recital 3 times a year, and perhaps the other schools don't, right? So this is where your unique value proposition will come in. And then evaluate the economic factors. So how is the market nowadays? How resilient is my market? So if the economy starts going down, will my students stop taking classes? Will their parents just say, well, we're going to take a break now? And how do I manage that risk? Perhaps I could say, well, my school is going to be in this particular area of town where people make more money, the median income is higher, so I have less risk of a fluctuating economy because of that. right? So this is where you get to figure out how you will be managing some of those risks. Then based on everything that you have just gathered, what is your decision? Is it a go or no go? And is this the right time to do it? If I would have made this same analysis back at the beginning of 2020 or in March of 2020, that could have been different. Perhaps I wouldn't have signed a lease for a brick and mortar school. Perhaps I would have gone online. So where is your window of opportunity? That depends on what's happening in the market and in the industry. And then outline what you would need to do next and when. So I would say I need to find a location. The location has to be this way or that way. And I need to find an instructor if I don't have one, because I'll be the other instructor. And I need to purchase furniture. I need to think about my marketing costs. Next, we will talk about the nature and importance of international business, but I will do that in the next video. So I'll stop here, and what I will be asking you to do is I will ask you to write a risk assessment plan for your own business. Okay? Again, this is different than the business plan. It doesn't have to be super long, but I would like for you to go through the exercise. That's it for this one. See you in the next video. Bye.